As a funnel user, you would have seen or heard us use the term non-aggregatable metrics. Now that sounds like something that's difficult to understand, and it can be, so I'm here to break that down for you today. Let's start with a story about a lady named Abby. Tired of her 9-to-5, Abby decided to quit and kickstart her lifelong dream, opening a coffee shop. It was a success right from the start. Everybody loved the coffee. And then Abby decided to think bigger. How about starting to sell gourmet coffee? She decided to take it slow and test the waters with just one gourmet flavor for starters, Hazelnut Express. And so she gave herself 1 month to track the number of customers who warmed up to the flavor. She told herself she was going to keep it simple. Just count the total number of cups of Hazelnut Express sold in the trial month. At the end of the first month, she knew it was a success, and she was pleasantly shocked to learn that she had sold more than 250 cups of the new flavor. That's 250 people who loved the coffee, she thought to herself. This new flavor seemed to have brought new customers in for sure. Here's where I'm going to pause the story, as I know what you're thinking. 250 cups of coffee doesn't mean 250 customers. What about repeat customers who had multiple cups of Hazelnut Express? No way there's that many unique customers. Now, what has this story got to do with us? Think of the cups of coffee as the number of times an online ad was seen, and the coffee drinkers as those who saw the ad. You know where I'm headed with this, right? I'm talking about reach, of course. Now, if you added your daily reach numbers and aggregated them at the end of the month, just like Abby did with the cups of coffee, you would come to the wrong conclusion, just like her. That's why you can't aggregate metrics like reach easily. At Funnel, we call these metrics non-aggregatable metrics because simply aggregating them leads to incorrect results. A similar example where this is more obvious is the count of followers or subscribers. If you have day-wise data for these metrics and you aggregate them at the end of the month, you risk counting the same followers or subscribers multiple times, giving you an inflated number. Other types of calculated metrics received directly from advertising platforms that should not be aggregated are somewhat obvious, like CPC, for example. A CPC is already the product of a formula, total cost divided by clicks, and has been calculated, and makes no sense to aggregate it again, as it would lead to incorrect results. In this example, you would simply be averaging an average once again. So, how do I avoid the data aggregation issue as a funnel user? One way to avoid the data aggregation issue is to get the most granular breakdown of the data that constitutes the metric. Once we have this breakdown, we can aggregate it ourselves within Funnel to recreate the metric. Let's take the example of CPC. The most granular data needed to calculate this would be cost and clicks. In this case, if we have the individual values for cost and clicks from the platform, we can create the CPC metric within Funnel by applying the formula total cost divided by clicks. However, granular data is not always available for all metrics from native platforms, such as Facebook. Take reach or follower count as examples. These metrics are already aggregated by the platform, and they will never share the granular data around it because it involves individuals like you and I. For privacy reasons, granular data can never be made available for such metrics. In such cases, we simply need to be aware that such metrics have already been aggregated by the platforms. All we can do is ensure that we don't aggregate it again in Funnel or anywhere else for that matter. With regular metrics that are already at their most granular, like cost, clicks, and impressions, we can aggregate them at any interval that is meaningful. However, with non-aggregatable metrics, defined time windows are more helpful. Why is this? Well, if you consider a non-aggregatable metric like reach, tracking it every 2 days might not be very meaningful, as you want to know how many people you've reached over a certain period of time, like a week or a month. Also, reach is cumulative, which means that when you look at it on day 7 of the campaign, it reflects the total value over the 7 days. So you do want to choose a time window that makes sense, and it is useful to remember that reach is a directional metric intended to give you a broad overview or indication of performance. That's why configuring non-aggregatable metrics within Funnel usually requires selecting a time window first. The chosen time window affects the metric value displayed for each day. This means that in a table or a graph, each day's metric reflects the total value for the previous X days. The only exception is the calendar month option, which works a bit differently. It shows the total value from the first of the month up to the selected day. Thank you so much for tuning in today and learning a bit more about non-aggregatable metrics with me. If you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to our support team at support@funnel.io or through our in-app chat. Bye!